Hey everybody, this is Nic Romolini and welcome to the second episode of The Blank Page, a podcast about creativity, neuroses, and the intersection of the two. Today's conversation is with Chris Hutton. He's a screenwriter based in Los Angeles who's known primarily for When the Streetlights Go On, which was featured on The Blacklist in 2011. It was made into a Hulu pilot and most recently was made into a full series on Quibi. I met Chris playing pickup basketball at the Silver Lake Rec Center maybe 7-8 years ago at this point. It was a time in my life when I was relatively new to LA and I was really reaching for some sort of connection. And I found this ragtag crew of dudes that used to roll out to the Silver Lake Rec at like 8:30 in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Just an absurd time for adults to be gathering for a recreational activity. And this scruffy crew of grown men just playing their hearts out as if they were teenagers was really appealing and therapeutic and cathartic, and man, it was a blast, and it was really timely in my life. Chris reminded me of the exact type of shit-talking dude that I knew from back east, and I was really surprised to learn that he's actually from Southern California, and I felt an immediate connection with him. And I've continued to maintain a friendship with him even as I've stopped going to the games because of all the kids that I have now, and an irrational and completely unfounded fear that if I keep playing, my body is just going to shatter. Anyway, I always found Chris to be the type of dude who I could talk to about rap and movies and music, but then also he was unafraid to chop it up about the real shit that I like to dig into. So that's why I thought he would be a perfect fit for this show, and I was really excited when he was willing to come on. Just a few notes. Prior to the call with him, I had an immense amount of technical difficulties, and I had a full-blown meltdown in my garage. I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than a tantrum. I mean, I didn't break anything, but I came close to breaking shit. And I think it was because it was my first real screenwriter who was going to be on the show. And if I can't get this right, what can I get right? And obviously I'm going to fuck this up. And obviously I'm a failure. And obviously this thing was never meant to be. And who the fuck do I think I am even trying to do something like this? And I sort of got through it somehow. And then the conversation was really great. We talk about a lot of shit. Irrational confidence, keeping it going when it gets tough. We talked about rules of screenwriting and how they get in our way. We talked about whatever. Just listen to the fucking thing. Here's Chris Hutton.
Yo.
Is this Papa Hut?
Yeah.
Soon to be Papa Hut.
What up?
Thanks for enduring my technical difficulties.
Don't worry about it, man. It's part of the scramble. It's part of the game. Part of the podcast game.
Harrowing process. I've at least 2/3 of my household, or the non-me portion of my household, angry at me right now. Understandably so, you know. Yeah, I was trying to get set up in my garage, and I mean, I went full Bob Knight out there. The folding chair. It was intense. You know, we'll cut all this stuff out. Do you believe in yourself today?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Wow.
Time.
That's
big time.
Really?
Yeah.
Big energy today.
Big energy.
Feeling really capable today.
Big energy.
Tell me what that's like.
Oh, man. When you wake up and you wake up on the couch and you just know today's gonna be a good day. You just know, listen, I'm gonna crush this one. I got treatments to write. I got emails to respond to. So I'm feeling pretty good about today. I got a seed of a good idea for a feature, so that's exciting. Um, just crushing it, dude. Just crushing it. Just trying to get that last bit of non-fatherhood creativity flowing. Um, I'm so curious how like your creativity changes in light of having a child. I wonder if there's like this surge of just like, oh, I got to get a million things done now because of the kid, or if it kind of like levels out. I'm so curious as to like how my flow is going to change.
Well, I will say that being 2 kids into the game now, each time I felt this surge of urgency
Uh-huh.
and also inspiration,
Right.
coupled with a complete and utter lack of time to achieve anything.
Right.
So,
The rub. It's like, where's it go? I guess it goes into the parenting, but yeah, yeah. I'm excited for that rush, for sure.
it's fantastic. I mean, it definitely has me moving faster in ways than I had before. And what happened was after the first kid, I was really pushing forward, and then it leveled off, you know? And then with the second kid, it came back, and I'm hoping now with the second kid that I'll be able to just sort of like put it in a bottle.
Right, right.
I will say that I'm taken aback that you so confidently mentioned just believing in yourself today.
I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it.
Well, I'm glad
I
that I
just
caught you
answered.
off guard.
Yeah.
Because that type of confidence is elusive, ever elusive for me, I think. Although maybe not as much lately. What does it take for you to actually like feel confident and to, like, believe that you can execute the idea in your head or get behind the idea that you're having?
Um, there needs to be a little bit of just of you got to kind of wake up with that irrational confidence, man. Kind of boost. I think when you're dealing with new ideas, for sure. I think that when you have a new idea, you know, that's when you can feel these things. You can answer that question when you start working within an idea and you start kind of exploring it. That's when the confidence starts to waver a little bit, and maybe you catch me like 3 weeks into a new idea, and then that's when things change. But a new idea that's why you're in it, I think, right? Because that's the chance at falling in love again, I think, with what you do, and just like, there's nothing better. I've given up so many times on so many different ideas that I'm like numb to like not, succeeding with an idea.
Right.
I used to give myself such a hard time when it came to that. I wouldn't like get to bed because I'd be like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I can't believe I abandoned that idea. I can't believe I didn't. And then now I've done it so many times, and that like I'm cool with not, succeeding on something, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I have an idea, so it's a good day, I guess. I
It's a
don't
hell
know.
of an exciting day. It really is.
For a second, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. Now comes the research. The research is the best, because the research you can like kind of fake yourself into. There's some good stuff you can get into. You get to watch movies, you get to read stuff, you get to do all the things that like make this job good.
Right.
This is the nice stuff. It's the fucking writing that is the nightmare. But yeah, this is like get to fill my cup up, you know.
It's truly remarkable that the actual writing process of writing is the worst part of the writing process.
It is. It's so cruel that like the action, but it. I don't know. why, I'm always trying to figure out why it's so miserable, and I think it's because you never feel like, you have a handle on it. Every time feels so new. I mean, they say it's a muscle and you can be writing your ass off, but once you hit once you hit that page one and final draft and you start, it's like, you know, it's like first date, it's like,
Right.
I don't know how to do this thing. I don't know, like, and then you start wigging out about commas and stuff that is like grammatical things that are
Insane
just so,
stuff.
it's
Yeah.
just like, you're like, I'm way past this. I don't know why I'm stuck in that, stuck in the past, but it's a it's a troubling thing.
That's the
But
whole
then you get,
thing though, right? I mean, it's you're getting in your own way basically. Like you sit down, you see the blank page and then it's like how many different ways can I stand in my own way of forward progress basically.
exactly, yeah. And there's people that like, I've always been so envious of people that can just go, and
Mhm.
not be concerned with what they're seeing, but knowing that like, okay, like I'm just getting it down and then I'll come back to it. And this is a like, I mean, to write a like a real like, I don't think I've ever written like a rough draft. Like everything has been toiled over. Everything has been like, I've looked at everything 9 million times and made myself so miserable that I've never really been able to be like, okay, like, I'm gonna, this all gets sorted out when I go back. I've always been so envious of people that can just like shit out a first draft. That must feel so good.
To have the feeling of completion of a V1 and to know that you're going to go back and change it and not have to agonize step by
Yeah,
step,
yeah,
page by
to just
page.
know, yeah, to know that like this is just like I'm just getting it down. These are the impressions. These are like, and I'm gonna get like I just don't know how to do that. I'm way too neurotic. I'm way too like every sentence is a total like miracle and disaster and like just like it's the worst. It's
Like
the worst.
sometimes I'll
So,
bang out like 2 pages without thinking, but
oh, that's
then
the
I will
best.
go
Two
back
pages. That's so much. 2 pages is amazing.
but then I
Yeah.
can't get away from those 2 pages for the next 2 hours. It's like I might bang them out in 10 minutes sometimes and then agonize over every single word for the next 2 hours.
Right, exactly. I don't know if you've ever read like P.T. Anderson's like scripts, but like they're just written with such like he knows he's going to direct them, so
Right.
his action lines and everything that he writes is like written from a directorial point of view, so it's just very terse, very simple language, and I always read those and I go, God damn it, that must feel nice to just be able to say like man turns to woman.
Right.
This is like it's like that flowery language that we kind of all like, I don't know, we're taught to write. Like, it doesn't matter. None of that gets read at the end of the day. So it's unfortunate that you have to convince people every time that you can write with like these action lines and things. But that's part of the gig. I guess when you're PTA, you can do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that luxury of Hemingwaying ourselves through things. I mean, he
No.
does write in a very like or his screenplays read like a Hemingway novel to me. I mean, it's just very straightforward. There's no, yeah, there's nothing flowery to it. I'm in a lot of ways. I wish I could go back and study creative writing more, and in a lot of ways, I wish I could go back and not study creative writing at all.
Right. Yeah, that's a funny little like paradox, right?
Totally. And I was actually really curious about sometimes I feel so stuck in formatting of a scene in the screenplay format, but I can see it in my head and I know it and I would know how to describe it to you if I was having a conversation with you. And I feel that the format can be so restrictive at times. Like, do you ever write out scenes as prose first?
Hmm. No, I've never done that. I know people that do, and I know exactly the feeling that you have. I guess when I get in that way, I just because what you're referring to is like you feel like you're like kind of shorthanding the kind of like action of a scene, or you're like, is that kind of what you're?
It's like I want to tell you more about what's going on, and I know that I'm not allowed to in action lines, basically. I mean,
Oh,
I think maybe it's a craft thing that I still need to develop more, but it's like
like unfilmables, right? That's what they call them.
Unfilmables. Yeah, I mean, like I want to be an omniscient narrator, in the way that you would read a novel. You know.
I guess I've tended to. I've been told that I overwrite, so I perhaps fall into that camp of like over describing and kind of writing in a more novelistic way. And I think that that's probably exactly what you're, just because I feel like if I can't tell you that she's like the babysitter that you've always had the hots for, you're not gonna like understand like that like to the full extent of who she is. So like I feel like I have to do that. I've always been like that. I don't know. But I've definitely, I think from stuff that I've, feedback that I've gotten from people in the past, professional and just like, it's always been like this sentence or this bit is a little bit overwritten. So right. I mean, I plus like, what's so strange, I think too, and this kind of like goes into is like a screenplay is it's not a pretty document.
Hideous.
So I think that it's hideous. It's hideous, right? It's hideous. Like you give a screenplay to your average Jack and they're just like, what is this?
Right.
Like I don't know how to like read this. Every time I give my screenplays to anybody in my family or my wife, it's like, I don't like, I can tell the response is probably mostly in part to like having to read that document. It's such a harsh, ugly like architecture. It's not very inviting. So I think that I guess going back to your point about like I think that I try to make it as like novelistic as possible. And you can there's we all have these like rules that we picked up. It's like I don't know who the fuck said you can't like write like you can't write a paragraph that's describing stuff that isn't like filmable. I don't know who said that. I don't know all these like there's all these rules of screenwriting that are so silly, and you learn them in film school and you learn them like kind of coming up that once you get to the dance, I don't think anybody really gives a shit.
Well, right. So you're trying to like bend yourself into this mold of rules because you're not in the dance yet. And it's like, well, maybe if I wasn't so concerned that like my action lines exceed 3 lines on the page, like, I mean, and for a really neurotic person, like I get in my own way so much because I'm like, well, now I need to figure out how to get, there's 2 words on a 4th line and I got to figure out what words I can eliminate to get this to 3 lines or some other, vague obsession like that of like, well, that's a cheat. And technically you can't say that much in an action line. Like, technically you don't know what the fuck you're talking about because you worked as a reader for an agency for 6 months.
Right.
But you take these things and they just start bouncing around in your head and become a part of your like overarching neuroses, right?
Totally. I mean, it's kind of, it's the same thing, as being like a kid and hearing things that kind of stick with you in your subconscious. I think every writer has like a kind of subconscious of list of rules of things that they can't do and they're not even sure why. It's just things that have stuck to them. Me and my writing partner, we tend to use narration, quite a bit. And as, it used to come so naturally to me to like want to like, and maybe that's a little bit to your point earlier, that's like the kind of prose writer in me. I just want to like explain more. Mm-hmm. And narration is just like the worst thing in the world to so many different people. And it's just, it's the rule 1, like don't use narration, show, don't tell, it's this thing that like people just have such a violent reaction to. So yeah,
but I really like films with narrators, like I'll watch a film with a narrator and be like, oh, I've kept clear of this in my work because fuck a narrator. But then I'll see a film with a narrator. I mean, even a Casino, for example, which has multiple narrators, but like I like movies with fucking narrators. Like,
I know. That's what it always gets down to. It's like I dig that shit.
Right.
Why can't I do it? I mean, and you can. It's just this funny it's this funny thing. It's, it's such a the industry and like what people like is just so weird, It's like I don't know, especially nowadays. It's like what I don't know if there's really any room for taste, and especially since like what in TV especially, it's like it's crazy. But I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like those are the things that inspired me. Why the fuck can't I write narration?
Right, exactly. Well, and the other funny thing is like, you'll see a lauded Tarantino screenplay and it'll be like, look at how he breaks the rules, and it's like celebrates what he does, but it's like, but you can't do that. You can't do that. Okay.
Right.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's reserved for him. He
What
can only be. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, dude. I don't know why. Some people get these special invitations, but you can do whatever the fuck you want.
I think that's the truth. And I think that if you do whatever the fuck you want, you will create more of a name for yourself and obviously stand out more. If you're doing whatever it is that you want, in quotes, and it's just aping the style of one other screenwriter or filmmaker, like, that's not going to work, obviously. But if you're doing whatever you want and it's a combination of all your influences, I mean, it's the same as anything else, right?
Exactly. Yeah, totally. I mean, my dream is to one day get to a point in my life where I'm like this old, withered, 85-year-old man, and I write like a screenplay with no insecurity and just total freedom. And I don't think about everything that I'm doing or like the things I'm ripping off or all, like I'm writing it in a way that comes from this like wellspring of like purity and like that, that's like, that'll never happen. But yeah, totally. It's like, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing.
Speaking of those insecurities, do you have tools and techniques that help you to work through those as you're sort of, in your day to day? I'm gonna write, however many, like whatever your process is. When you hit those walls of like deep insecurity and deep self doubt or whatever it may be, how do you work through that shit?
I mean,
primal screaming. I think you cut out.
Yeah, mostly. Did you say primal scream?
I said primal screaming.
Yeah. No, that's what I do. I do a lot of primal screaming. I do a lot of that. I don't know, man. I think I'll tend to lean on, the people that I admire and just kind of, remind myself. It's a lot of reminding myself that that's part of the game is this feeling. And then just continuing on, I think that so many people get in their own way and just kind of like stop the train. And I think that you just got to keep fighting that kind of reactionary insecurity, because I'm not sure if that ever goes away. I mean, I'm sure it does if you, me and you are in similar positions where we've had very few things made, and we've had so I think that it makes sense that we're, in early 30s, mid 30s, like young-ish writers that are still trying to kind of figure out what language we're supposed to speak to kind of break in here. So I think insecurity is part of that, because, we don't have we haven't been afforded the right to kind of just be artists yet. It's like we're still kind of like playing a game. But I always go back and I read my favorite screenplays, and I read that always seems to do the trick. Or I'll watch something in the vein of whatever it is that I'm writing, and I'll just try to say like, does that, is what you're doing, does it really speak to you? And if it really speaks to me, I'm okay with the insecurity, because I know at the end of the day, if I'm being honest with myself and I'm being honest with the subject that I'm interested in, then it's okay to be insecure. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it really is a lot about just pushing through, just opening the document again and writing some shit into it. And, I dread Writing so much. I mean, my favorite part of the process is thinking of ideas. Like, you'll have 3 new ideas in a few day span, and that is what fills you with all this. It fills your cup with the good juice. And
Yeah, it's like the optimism in you. But do you consider yourself more of a director or a writer?
That's a great question. I've certainly done more directing. I've completed more projects that I've directed than I've completed projects that I've written.
Right. When you're writing, do you write as a director or are you writing as a writer? I don't know.
I'm absolutely writing as though I will be the one directing.
Right.
So, yeah, and I don't know how that influences the work. And I don't know if it is a sort of impediment in some ways to just being able to get things down on the page. Or maybe it has the opposite effect. I'm not sure. Do you think of yourself?
Well, that's interesting that you just said that, because there's certain writers, right, that can just knock it out, right? They know that they have something that they can kind of job it a little bit,
Right.
They can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to write this and I'm going to, I'm going to flip that and turn that into that and it's going to be done. I guess when you're writing with more of a kind of directorial, and even though I don't direct, I feel like I write as a director. I feel like I write in a way that is not very conducive to just I feel like there's a lot of specificity. So I don't know what it's like to do it any other way either. But what was my point here? I think that there's something. I wonder if what that does to what it is you're writing, right? You got to really be in love. You got to really be in you got to really be this is the idea, right? Versus somebody who can kind of have an idea for a spec and just kind of just crank it out.
Totally.
And just yeah.
Because they're just because I would imagine that's okay, I'm going to give this up and somebody else is going to do with it what they're going to do with it. And it doesn't really matter. I just need to create the best product on the page to sell, basically. But that's where their part of the process ends, is when it sells, and then it goes into somebody else's hands. But when you think as a director, it's well, I need to have this be exactly how I see the movie playing in my head. And I don't know if maybe writers who are just writers also write that way, they see the movie play in their head. But as a director, I'm I know what angle I want this shot to be. Right. I know that this is a 2-shot. This dialogue exists solely in a 2-shot that's going to be, on a dolly pushing in. I wouldn't write that in the script, but that's how I see it in my head.
Exactly, yeah. And that definitely contributes to some of the misery,
right.
Of all of this. Is you see it, you see it
right.
in your director's eye is seeing it versus the kind of the spec writer who's just what, just got to get this down on the page and then sell it, And I don't know if those people really exist. I don't I'm sure they do, but I think everybody has everybody's got to be writing it from a directorial point of view to some extent. But I think with somebody like you or other people that are kind of a director first or it's got to influence how you write for sure.
But I'm also at this point where I'm I need to have more shit that I've written. So I need to push through these hangups and push through any sort of concern of how the work is being presented. How do I phrase this?
Yeah, but dude, that doesn't go away. Honestly, man, I've written so many things that have kind of circulated through the industry, and I wake up in a cold sweat at night and go oh my God, I haven't written anything. I don't think that I don't think that dude, I swear it's every day I wake up and I'm I don't have anything out there that's representative of what I want to do.
Right.
It's and yeah, you're right. You do need to just keep writing and keep writing and keep writing, but it's I wonder if that ever goes away. I constantly feel that too.
I mean, I would wonder what it's like after you've achieved some modicum of success, where you've had a bunch of things made and like people know you've name recognition and people are anticipating what you're gonna do next. I mean, I guess that anticipation would then bring with it its own sort of pressures and
Totally, yeah.
yeah. So if you're working on one screenplay today, for example, how often are you thinking about that project? Like sometimes I'll just be like living my life. Like I was driving around the other day, like really enjoying Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die, that record. Like I haven't listened to it in years and I was like banging it record, in the
dude.
Jeep.
That's an amazing record.
It's fucking amazing. But I'm
What's
driving.
the song with the game on that?
I think that one's on the Massacre, right?
That's on the Massacre. Yeah.
Hate It or Love It, that one.
Oh my God. Put on Hate It or Love It, bro. And like, I will lose my shit.
Dude.
I will lose my shit.
I know. My true colors really come out whenever I'm like banging rap and driving around. But in those moments where I'm just like straight up enjoying myself and like completely like in my mode, sometimes I'll be like, why aren't you thinking about your movie right now, man? The fuck are you doing? Wasting your time listening to 50 Cent right now. Like, do you ever have that of like, oh man, I gotta be spending more of like my waking life thinking about this? Or are you like dedicated to the time that you're actually like set aside for working? I mean, obviously like you're sitting on the couch hanging out, like watching a show or whatever, and shit's going through your mind, but I think you understand what I'm asking.
Totally. No, I do. And I think that what you're outlining is healthy behavior, you know, being able to kind of get lost in something else, I think is only additive to like being a creative, you know, whether it's 50s, whether it's 50 or if it's 50. You know, something else. But I think that's totally healthy. I think that more often than not, I exhibit really, really unhealthy, obsessive behavior, kind of about a story. And that's something that I really, really, I'm trying to be like cognizant of, especially, you know, with impending fatherhood on the horizon. It's right. That like, you know, being in the moment and being okay with not like having your idea like circulating in your head at that exact time, because my wife sees it all the time. She just is like, where are you right now? You know, like, and it's, I don't think that that's good. And I don't think that that's necessarily beneficial to being, I think it's an unfortunate, you know, kind of symptom of what we all have, which is writing, you know, like, right. But I don't know if that's like entirely healthy. I think that when you can kind of disconnect and let yourself kind of go under, it can only be helpful. You know, but at the same time, I've also worked through a lot of ideas by being an obsessive freak. So like, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's however you move. I would like to be a little bit more, you know, I would love to be able to kind of like close it up a little bit more and be like, all right, it's 5:00. And like the rest of the night is not thinking about that. It's just thinking about other things. It's thinking about, you know, just dinners or whatever. And being human, because it follows me for sure into a lot of things. And it's not necessary. It's not, even though like sometimes I get excited that like, you know, that obsession helps me get an idea or like it helps me, it doesn't feel good. Like I don't feel good throughout the day. It feels very unhealthy and it feels very consuming and it's draining. I mean, I make a lot of the time I'll make playlists when I get an idea. Music is what like is the first place I start usually. So like you'll create a playlist. Yeah, I'll create a playlist even before like I have like written anything on paper, because you know I'll hear the initial sounds of whatever it is that like I kind of like want to go for.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's super helpful, and it just excites me more. It kind of builds like a weird foundation for me to like be able to like it gives me a little bit of a confidence booster, because I can hear sounds that I think can accompany what it is that like I'm thinking of. It doesn't make me feel as lonely. And so I'll make these things and then I'll play them just obsessively. So I'm in these songs now. Now I'm stuck in these songs, and then my whole life becomes, it's soundtracked by these 9 songs. So like I'm just in this like deep spiral of just fucking like, oh my God, 9 songs are tailing me. Like I don't like, it's crazy. I'm like Leota at the end of Goodfellas. Like I'm looking up at the sky, like
the helicopter.
Just like the helicopter of the songs are just like everywhere. And so it's helpful again, but is it healthy? I don't know.
That's so funny. As like a super obsessive person, I mean, even if it's not relevant to a project or something, like I will often have songs that just run through my mind at all times of the day. But to your point of this playlist idea, I have had like 5 Blink-182 songs coursing through my brain at all hours of the day, including when I'm trying to sleep, when I wake up, because I'm like I had this idea for whatever. It's about like a high school thing that like involves somebody in their 20s, or I'm not going to get into the idea, but
I love it though. I mean, the fact, dude, a Blink inspired like high school thing is that's my fucking jam right there.
I mean, right? But like I cannot get these like 4 or 5 Blink-182 songs out of my head, to the point where like I've been listening to a couple of their records a lot, and like my wife, will occasionally, she supports a lot of my musical tastes as I play them loudly in the house daily. Especially during the pandemic when we're all just home and fucking, I'm listening to Californication on repeat, like trying to get back in my friend's 78 Monte Carlo and feel that vibe of the, smell the cigarette smoke and whatever. But she's like, I was listening to, I don't know, Apple Shampoo or Josie. Now I'm getting like deep into Blink cuts.
Oh
but
my God, dude, that's such a good song.
She was like, this music I really don't like. And I'm like, no, I know. I'm not playing this because I think you like this. Like, I'm playing this because I need to be in this vibe.
That feeling, though, is you start hearing the songs. You're not hearing the songs like, like a passive kind of like, I'm observing. You're hearing the songs under, like, the spell of the idea.
Exactly.
So you're hearing them, and they're sounding so much more textured and rich, and they start telling a story as opposed to just being like a fucking stupid Blink-182 song. It's portraying a mood. So like, yeah, if you're not in that,
totally.
yeah. I had a similar idea. I wanted to write a high school thing like in the early 2000s, and I was listening a lot to CKY.
Wow.
And that one song, Disengage the whatever the fuck, it was like on their first like skate video. I heard it, and it was like hearing like a Beatles song, like to me, like in the way, like that's kind of how much I was moved by it. And
right.
My wife did the same thing, where she was like, why, like, I feel so bad that like you're in this, like, this is your vibe right now. And I was like, dude, you're not hearing what I'm hearing, So it's a funny thing. But that's what music will do. And that's why I think those playlists are so beneficial. I mean, anything that'll like allow me to like not have to put words on paper, I will do.
Exactly.
I will gather so many images. I'll go, before, when you could go to public places, I would go to the library and just like scan photos and just like do whatever I could to like not have to write. And I think that's important, you know, because like, so when you really get to that page, you've exhausted every escape plan, and
it's all ready to come out at that point. I think you've built up this store that it's gotta come out. It's gotta come out.
It's like you have nowhere to run anymore.
Right. That's such a good way of putting it.
But it's funny, man. I don't know. I always think of novelists too, and I wonder if novelists feel this way. I mean, I don't know, like maybe it's because screenwriters aren't really writers. I don't know. I don't know what it is that like makes it. I'm sure novelists are just as miserable and just as like, but I wonder if they have such anxiety about, I'm sure they do. We all do.
I'm sure it's a mix, I'm sure there's like, you know, that one Mr. Peanut Butter in every bunch who's like, oh, you're struggling to write your... This is a BoJack reference. I don't know if it's obscure for you, but like...
I totally know what you're talking about.
Like, Diane, like, is struggling so hard to write her memoir, and BoJack just writes a book in a weekend, you know? And it's like, I don't know how it happened. It just came out of me. That show's fucking brilliant. But yeah, I mean, I think I just wanted to respond to a couple of things that you said. Like, as far as the music thing, like, you're no longer just hearing a song, you're seeing a movie when you hear the song. You're seeing a sequence play out in your mind that's not just, you know, Mark Hoppus in the music video or, you know, Bam Margera. No. Was he in CKY?
Bam was CKY.
Right,
bro.
he was CKY. He was actually from like a couple towns away from us. So like my friends that were BMX riders like sweated those guys heavily.
Oh man. Yeah. That's a scene. That's a scene back then, dude.
Oh,
like
man.
That's been like like him in like early Bam and like that band Him. It's like that's like a good like, you know, weird emo skate scene.
Weird emo skate, man. There's nothing really compares.
No, that's take me back, please.
Take me back, I know. Get me the fuck out of whatever 2020 is. But also, like, I think there is, like, a symbiotic relationship, and I think you'll find, like, this balance in fatherhood that, like, there is a symbiotic relationship between all of the arts, obviously, and, like, parenthood is an art the same way cooking is an art, the same way gardening is an art, and... when you're doing those things, you're feeding those reserves and you're just feeding your overall artist and inner creative. And I think that gives you fuel for all avenues of the arts, I think.
That's really nice to hear. Yeah. I mean, I would hope so. And you know, that sounds true to me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever work on multiple projects at the same time? Like, I mean, and I guess my struggle sometimes to focus on one project is because I feel like right when I get a little bit of momentum, I have another idea for another project. And maybe this is just part of that whole excitement of the beginning of the process. But like, does that ever happen to you where like you can't keep focus on a project because you're like, well, wait, I have this other fucking great movie idea and I need to work this one out. Like, how do you keep your focus on one thing?
Yeah, no, that definitely happens all the time. I like to kind of compartmentalize and put it in like, so for instance, I could never work on like two screenplays at the same time, like two features I couldn't do. But I can do a feature and a TV show because there's like, they're not competing in the same part of my like mind. And then alternatively, I find that like a lot of my life is like treatment writing. You know, like that's like something that wasn't in the job description, that like if you would have told me when I was like 21 that like most of your life will be writing these like 5-page like documents to try to convince somebody to let you write something, I would have been like, oh, I don't really want to do that. But you know, that's just like, that's what it is now. And I can do those. Those are like
multiple treatments at a time, you mean?
Multiple treatments, yeah, because I know that I'm not diving in so heavily. I think that like anytime that I've ever tried to balance like two, you know, ideas that I liked, I've never been able to do that. I know people that can, and I know people that, but like I get kind of like monomania when it comes to an idea, and I just have to like, I have to do that or else, you know, there's no real hope for the idea to succeed, I don't think.
Will you, yeah, I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering if I should just like, because I have multiple things kind of all moving forward a step at a time right now, and I'm wondering if I should just park two of them. But so you will shut off everything for other ideas and just focus, like you wouldn't be doing research for another film while you're writing one?
No,
right?
No, I wouldn't. No, because I personally can't. But again, like you might be able to do that, and I know other people that can. You know, and there's like these weird, like prolific screenwriters that are just able to do multiple things at one given time, and it's really crazy. But I've never been able to do that. No.
Yeah, I'll have to reconsider my process. I'm so early. I feel like I'm in such the infancy of the pursuit of this career still that, I'm still trying to like codify my process. Even like, do I outline everything? But like, do you outline?
Before writing a script, I have. It's funny. That's a good question, but every time that I've outlined, I've finished the script, and every time that I haven't outlined, I haven't finished the script. So, so I do and I don't. It would make sense to do it though, because my track record is like definitely. I have a percentage here that I should probably stick to, but like, I don't know what I always Tarantino, like, right? He just sits down and he's like BoJack. He just like, oh, I wrote this thing in a month, and like it's incredible. And I always heard that he kind of like lets the movie sit in his brain long enough he doesn't need to outline.
Because he's already played it out in his mind before he ever wrote a word. Times,
and it's like. And I don't know why, but I do that occasionally. But I'm not obviously as good as Tarantino or anywhere near the same. So I never finish it. So yeah, I think outlining is important. But I would love to write a script without having outline. I mean, just like get it down. That would be amazing. I don't know if I ever told you, but one of the, I wrote this thing with my writing partner 100 years ago, When the Streetlights Go On, which is the thing that has kind of floated me for the last 10 years. It's like every time that it's like my high school diary now. It's like it's so embarrassing to look at, but it just keeps like rearing its ugly head every once in a while. And there's only so many iterations. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody wanted to make it a video game in like a year, just because like it's just gone through so many different things.
That's great.
But it's a funny thing, and we literally took the Virgin Suicides, watched it, wrote down every single beat, and then mapped our script to those beats.
That's incredible.
So we, like, in terms of like ripping a movie off, like I don't think we could have ripped anything off more than that. Like it was literally like we took every single beat and was like, okay, what is our beat in this? Like what's the same beat but in our story?
Right.
And that was like the best, easiest writing experience I've ever had. I haven't done that since. I don't know why. And like there are instances where I will like kind of like dip my feet into it, but I never did it to that extent.
That's so much work on the front end. I mean, it's amazing that you did that, but sometimes I think about mapping out an entire film and I'm like, Christ, do I really want to fucking do that?
I think it's easier when you have two people, man. It's
right.
Like that's where like the collaboration component makes things a lot easier, because you have two heads and one's getting down and the other one's up, and like you're able to kind of balance the shit that you wouldn't do if you were just by yourself. Because like I think that's partly why I don't do it, like otherwise, because like I just can't, I don't have the patience to do it when I'm by myself, like who the fuck wants to beat out Paris, Texas? Like I can't do that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, partnerships definitely appeal to me. I think there's also something that I need to like prove to myself that I can do it myself first. I feel like I spend so much time sort of relying on somebody else that it just continues to fuel my insecurities and my self-doubt. Like, and though I really do see the value in a partnership and a collaboration. But yeah.
No, dude, that's a huge part of like my my kind of well of I don't know, psychological inadequacies is partly due, I think, in especially in this industry, is due to the fact that I entered it in a partnership.
Right.
it's made things a lot more complicated for me in terms of, especially now as I get older, and inevitably as you get older, you start to, it's like the band breaks up. Whether the band breaks up fully is like Eddie and I are still, we're still good friends and we still collaborate on stuff, but it's definitely not like, sleeping at each other's house, like sweating, like the fucking, like we're gonna write 24/7. We're gonna like never sleep, like which is the early days. And so now I'm in my 30s and I'm kind of known to the industry as like being a part of this entity, but I'm also trying to carve out. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm not starting over, but I'm definitely like, I have to kind of like fulfill two halves of myself for sure.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you want your first solo album to sound? You know?
Dude, you want to rush it? Have a McCartney like situation where it's like, yeah, maybe I'm amazed on it. That's a nice song, but like that first McCartney album's, definitely not Plastic Ono. So it's like
Right. How much do you want to stay rooted in what you've done already, and how much do you need to break out with your own voice? And
yeah, that's we got to get like a psychiatrist on the call for
I'll
that,
call
because
up
like
Scott. It's my guy.
Call up your guy, because like that's when you say that, dude, like that's a really relatable part of this for me. It's like, because how do you not depend on when you're writing with somebody and you guys have got a thing going? It's like, of course you're going to depend on that. I think.
Well, and so much of your self-worth and your value is wrapped up in that too. At least for me, I'm like, well, wait, I didn't really think of that. That I didn't think of that idea. That all the funny shit is from him. Like, whatever. Like that wasn't me. That was somebody else. And it just feeds that imposter syndrome, that never-ending self-doubt, and like not good enough, and like don't belong here, and like all of that shit.
Oh man, dude, that's the good shit right there, man. that is the good shit for sure. Because like I definitely have a little bit of that, and I think that's it's primarily been inflated by the, like what you're saying. It's like I'm not sure what I did or who I am as a writer sometimes, but it feels so like par for the course though. Like there's always going to be something. There's always going to be that thing. You just got to keep working. You just got to, like, that's the only thing. It's such dumb fucking, not even advice, or, but like, you got to keep the train going, and inevitably, something happens, whether it's the like humbling or sobering reality of like that nobody wants to do your shit,
right?
or the fact that like people are emailing you and you're getting some. It's all stems from you doing work. So
that's the truest. I mean, that's really the truth of it all. Is like, anytime I've ever opened a document and sat in it for at least 10 minutes, something's happened. Right. You know what I mean? Like something happens. You just need to show up to the job, basically. Yeah,
it's not luck. It's none of this is like, it's a little bit of luck for sure. There's like that Woody Allen thing, but like I like you got to create more than anything, and you have to create and just let go and move on and just continually kind of evolve and just kind of like keep going and keep going and keep going. So I don't know if you're like, I have this weird, I'm very common, but like I always get stuck in like wanting to like really visualize what's going to happen with something, and I feel like that visualization is like helpful to it's that old secret bullshit, which there's different iterations of this idea, but like it's like, how much do I need to visualize this? How much do I need to like empower the idea in order for it to be real? And at the same time, it's like, is it that, or is it completely being like oblivious to like wanting anything, and then not, and in that like not like in that legitimate like not wanting thing, like having things then happen. There's like that old like quote of like once you're good with giving up everything, that's when you'll get whatever you wanted.
Totally.
Like I have that, like that the two halves of me are always like, no, like sit in the visualization, like make it real, like really like manifest it, like have it like be the real thing. And then there's that other part of me that's like, forget about it.
Yep.
Like, don't give a shit. Move on. Say no. Like, don't like give up. Like, that's good. Like, that's like, don't have the like, don't like play. We were talking about the other day on the hike. Like, don't paint the picture in your head of like what it's gonna look like or what it's gonna feel like, because I don't know. I that's a tough balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the balance of Buddhism mixed with the sort of the power of visualization, I guess.
Exactly. That's totally it. Yeah.
I mean, and I guess that's what we are as humans, I guess, I don't know. No, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Yeah, that's it. I mean, one part is just accepting every moment. It's like being very much in the moment and also projecting into a reality that you want. And that's like, I find that they're almost they're at odds with each other in a lot of ways, but like I am in this moment as I'm projecting 10 years from now that I want to like be overlooking the coast in a condominium, or whatever it is,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about one foot in front of the other, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny too. It's like, do you love movies? Like, do you love them? Are they your like lifeblood?
I mean, I think music is more than movies, actually, because I have more opportunity to consume music. Music keeps me going day after day. Movies, I love movies. I have such little time now that, I mean, it took me like 4 nights to watch Tree of Life. Legitimately 4 nights. Because like
that's about right. I think he intended the 4-nighter.
I guess he wanted me to start falling asleep, in 30-minute intervals. Yeah, no, I mean, when I watch, I can't think of the last movie that really was arresting for me. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing comparable to that feeling of, watching Melancholia or something. And,
right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, movies, man, movies.
I always think of like, because like I always like ask myself that question, because I'm like, I don't know how in love with films I am. Like, it's a weird thing. It's like I always fall back on my idols, and I think of like Tarantino and PTA and the way that they speak about these films, and then I watch an Altman movie and I'm just like so deeply bored
by
like what's going on, and I'm like, what is, like, maybe I don't know, like it's obviously part of it's generational, and I know like they're like VHS like era, and they've just consumed, but like, so did we to some extent. I don't know, it's I'm always asking myself, it's like, what do I even like really love, like TV, right? It's so funny, like I've made my money in TV. I've made my like living in TV. Mm-hmm. I'm a TV writer, I guess. I don't watch TV, and when I do watch TV, I can't stand it. So it's a funny thing to like be a part of a medium that you have like no interest in,
How disinterested are you in recommendations as well? Sorry, this is a little bit of an aside, but I cannot fucking take people, one more person being like, oh my God, you gotta watch that. Or you didn't see, no, I'm telling you, the last season of Westworld got better. Dog, I am not watching 40 episodes of something in the hopes that it's going to get better.
Yeah, totally. And that the Westworld, that's like, I cannot tell you how it's, and it's funny. I mean, I should, next time that happens, I'm going to have the balls to say, like, I have no interest in that. Like,
I've just said it. I mean, with friends that I'm, closer to at this point, I'm like, I'm not watching that. And I don't care for your recommendation, frankly.
Yeah, the
I
TV
appreciate you.
recommendation is way worse than the film because like the film recommendation I can get around because a film is like, it's an hour and a half, it's 2 hours.
It's a singular
I
experience.
it's a singular, but like the TV recommendation is like, where do you get off, bro?
Exactly.
Recommending 4 seasons to me, like what? Like I can barely get through a pilot episode. Like, don't do this to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that I'm much more apt to consume things that I know have an end point. In terms of TV series, like I know This Much Is True was 6 episodes and I was out. I watched The Deuce recently because I knew that it was 3 seasons and it was done. There was no threat of it going on for 8 seasons and me feeling, indebted to watching it.
Right, totally.
I mean, and the TV model feels, it just feels like, it's not predatory, that's not the right word, but it feels very opportunistic in the sense of like, yeah, Shameless was a cool show for a couple seasons, and now there's 13 seasons. Like, it just feels like such an opportunity to just milk shit forever.
Yeah.
I'm not talking shit on Shameless.
Not always first.
Or Westworld. For the record, I don't care. Like, whatever people enjoy, you enjoy, but...
No. It's more just like the TV model is just such a, it's definitely has monetary gain at the heart of it.
I just want things that I know will terminate at some point.
I totally agree. I mean, like I know This Much True was just like beautiful because it was like I know this is this many hours, and like I can handle that. The miniseries, like
big ups to the miniseries, man.
Like, thank God we said that was okay. You know, is like, because like there was like 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever, like I remember pitching like a mini series, or I remember pitching like an anthology series, and like people were like, nope, can't do it. And then finally somebody came around and was like, you know what, let's do this because people don't give a shit after episode 2.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
People are still watching The Walking Dead. I think that's still a show that's still on television that people still watch.
That is
show's been around since the 90s,
Shameless.
I think.
Talk about Shameless.
Yeah, Shameless, exactly. So, what do you think I should call this fucking podcast, man? I'm so insecure about naming this thing. Like, I'm trying to figure out I don't even know, like, what, I have no idea what to call it. What would you call it?
I don't know.
There's something about like
something.
This being like the of shit that you're not supposed to. It feels like taboo, kind of. Some of what we're talking, not taboo, but like definitely shit that nobody really talks about.
Yeah, and I think like stumbling your way across like kind of like or like insecurities and insights into like the actual process of like, because like me and you were talking, dude. It's like this is the stuff that like you hear and it like fortifies your soul. You're like, oh my god, dude, like again, like PTA, like he it's like he takes a shit, really, like he doesn't
exactly.
Like like you're like, oh my god, he has trouble, he struggles, like this is like the stuff that is like so relatable and so helpful and so beneficial to somebody. It's like nobody cares about like the Safdies like talking about like Sandler. It's like we want to hear like how you guys like fucked up a bunch of times on the script before you like actually got it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's when you tell me that the best part of the process is the research for you or whatever it is, like you will exhaust all that shit. Like that's so encouraging to me, and it's like so validating to hear too. And like, yeah, I mean, this is what keeps you going, not like, oh, explain to me what your outline looks like. Tell me about your treatment, No, I want to hear like how you push through when you feel like you fucking suck.
Exactly. No, dude, that's what it is.
Maybe that's the title. How do you push through when you feel like you fucking suck?
The name is somewhere in that, like, you can have like pushing through whatever that fucking thing is,
Yeah. Whatever that fucking thing is.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, man. Hopefully you can use this. This was helpful. It's like a little therapy session. I'm down.
Hope that's the idea. Hopefully It can
Feel
be
good now. Now I'm
therapeutic.
feeling loose, baby.
Good, man. Well, you woke up believing in yourself, and now hopefully you believe in yourself a little more.
That's what I'm talking about. That's like a podcast host right there.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
I'll good luck with your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, much love. Later,
Much
bro.
love. Bye-bye.